Hey there, I am Christie Ruffino, former broke single mom turned CEO of 2 six-figure businesses and best-selling author with 15 books. But it wasn't always like this. Not long ago, I was a hot mess. Yes, I did a lot of things right, but mostly I was throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what would stick. Fast forward past many failed attempts and a few incredible victories, I not only get to share what I've learned along the way, I get to bring together top influencers as they share their empowering stories, insider secrets, and valuable resources that can be used right now to step into your power. So, if you're an ambitious entrepreneur, or possibly one in the making, and you're looking to create a business and life that lights you up, well, then you're in the right place. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Mastery Unleashed podcast. This is Christie Ruffino, the host of the show and the person that has the pleasure of having a fun conversation with two wonderful men. One of them is a dear friend and longtime mentor and longtime friend, Bob Burg, and he has joined forces with Jeff West to create an amazing book, a parable about how we can beat the sales blues, become objection proof, and just really go through the sales process in a way that everybody wins. And their new book, Streetwise to Saleswise, is our conversation today. So they both have incredible bios. They both have done amazing things. But we're going to go ahead and just dive right into the conversation so you can learn from them, be inspired from them, and have a better sales conversion with your conversation so you can help your clients and turn them into raving advocates for you and your business. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's show. I am so excited about our episode. I have two of my good friends. Bob, we've known each other for a long time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you have
Yeah.
been one of my heroes for a long time, and so is Jeff. So this is awesome for me. Wow. I'm just going to kind of sit back and enjoy this.
Yeah. And then, Jeff, you're a new friend. We've only met maybe about 4 years ago through Bob.
Yeah,
So
right.
a friend of Bob's is a friend of
Oh,
mine. And the fact that you guys are collaborating on this awesome book, I am so excited to have this conversation
you know,
today.
you kind of said that tentatively, though. It was like, well, any friend of Bob, just a friend. Bob.
No, no, no,
I'm
no,
just
no.
glad she didn't use air quotes on friend. I'm good with this.
That's right. This is audio only. So I can use all kinds of little hand
Oh,
gestures
wow.
today.
Okay. So I didn't have to get like
No,
dressed up or anything for
you didn't
this.
have to fix your hair for
Oh
anything other than
man.
for me and Jeff.
Well, I would fix it for you. Not so much Jeff.
Jeff, you're getting red.
I'm always red down here on the neck, but the face
Yeah.
is matching it right now. So
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk. Make sure we have enough time to talk about this awesome book. And I know, Bob, actually, both of you guys are familiar with doing co-authored projects, right? You worked with Lisa, Jeff, and I know, Bob, you worked with John David Mann. But what brought this partnership together on this topic?
well, it's funny. I'll tell the origin story, and then Bob can take it over. That I had, of course, Bob and I've been friends for 20 plus years, and we're always discussing sales things back and forth, shooting emails back and forth. And Bob had sent me an email on something, just wanted to see what my perspective was. And the very last comment on his email was, by the way, save this because when you and I do our parable, this may be good to refer back to. Now, at this time, we'd never talked about doing a parable, and it was just kind of an off the cuff comment. And so I sent back, I replied to his question, and then I said, "Oh, and by the way, if you're serious, oh yeah, we're doing this."
I love it. I love it. All right. So, Bob, do you have a different story?
Not really. It's that same 20 years I've known Jeff, and we have, always kept in touch. And in the last few years, he's been a member of the Go-Giver Success Alliance, and he met Lisa Wilbur that way, co-author of their award-winning books of The Lady with the Blue Hair. He also had another parable out, but he was a great sales leader and sales champion back in the day with a Fortune 500 insurance company. And so this guy knows his stuff. I mean, he is a sales icon, and so but he became a wonderful writer, and he studied it. And his one of his writing mentors is John David Mann. So
Really?
so this is all sort of
Full
part
circle.
of a family, full circle, exactly. But yeah, several years ago, I had put down some thoughts in an ebook form about objections, because I've always noticed how objections are the bane of the salesperson's existence. And when you think about it, there's no need for it to be, because we tend to know just about every objection we're going to get within our first few sales conversations. Okay, so there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to handle them and work with them effectively, instead of being intimidated by them and having them be the loss of so many good sales, in ways we can really serve clients and also make good money. And so I put these thoughts down, but never really did anything with. You know how something's important, but it's not that important that it gets to the top of the list. So it was never going to happen as a how-to. And so, when Jeff and I had that one conversation, that little sort of side thing, and I thought, this would be a good parable though. And if anybody could write it and make it sing, it would be Jeff. So yeah, that's really how that started. So it was an off the cuff remark, but it wasn't totally off the cuff.
Yeah. Well, but I love that you guys just took that remark and like ran with it, right? Like there was an urgency. So when did that email happen? Like how long ago was that spark was initiated?
Yeah, it was fourth quarter of 2022. Blue
Oh,
Hair had just come out, and it was sometime right around the when we debuted Blue Hair, and we began to kind of talk about it. Bob sent me his material on becoming objection proof, and it's funny. My wife and I were sitting in New Orleans right around New Year's Eve at that same time, at the end of 2022. And when we were sitting there having a late lunch on a balcony of a restaurant, and we were literally drinking a glass of Chianti, and a street singer, a busker, started to sing down at the corner. And I'm sitting there, and the entire storyline came to me, and it just flowed. It was. It was so much fun for me because I couldn't wait to see where the story went next.
wow. Wow. And that's a gift to be able to write a really well story that ties into the message or the theme and lessons, of course. So good for
Yeah.
you. Wow. So that's awesome. And I know the topic is about objections, and I am kind of looked over some of the like, the notes, talking points, and there's a lot of words and phrases that I get, of course, objections and maybe framing and value proposition, but there are things that I've not seen before, like fusion points and what is backdoor. And so there's a lot of things that I want to make sure we have a chance to talk about, but let's start with just the framing. I think people get what objections are, but how does framing fit into it, and why is it so important?
Well, objection proof totally reframes the entire objection scenario, if you will, or concept. Objection proof itself is really it's a philosophy and a methodology that allows the sales professional to work effectively within the objections aspect of the sales process. So in other words, we've been taught you should overcome objections, right? Well, the challenge with that is you really can't, for a couple of reasons. One, because to overcome or to convince has the root, the Latin root, the old Latin root of convince is convincere, which means to conquer. Now,
Mm.
Jeff and I, as he mentioned earlier, have sales conversations. We discuss sales all the time. And we have both agreed on many occasions that there is not one prospective customer or client who wants to be overcome by their salesperson, because what are we
Correct.
telling them? That they are wrong. And whether or not they're right or wrong doesn't even matter, because their ego is going to be involved. And now they're going to be totally resistant toward what we say. So what we want to do then is, rather than trying to overcome the objection, instead, we want to work within the objection in partnership with our prospective customer or client, and go back to and discover the actual root, the real reason for the objection, and then work together in order to advance the sale. See, here's the thing. A lot of times they will give an objection, and it really won't be the actual objection. It will be simply a manifestation of the actual objection. Now, I'm not saying they're lying, okay? And if they are, and that happens sometimes, but if they are, that's a whole different story. That's a trust issue, and you've got to establish that trust first, or nothing's going to happen. No, I'm talking about when they're really interested, okay? But what happens is, because you as the salesperson know your work, you know your job, you know your process, and you do it all the time, right? We all do it. Whatever we sell, we're doing it all the time, every day. But the other person, the prospective customer or client, this may be, depending upon the type of product or service, the one time in their life, or twice or three times they're ever going to do this. So they don't know the process. So they feel a little defensive anyway, right? They feel a little bit like they don't want to come across as ignorant. They don't know the right questions to ask. They don't know if they should ask this question. They don't want to offend us, whatever. So what they do, right? They don't know exactly what the objection is, but sort of like the old Spider-Man cartoons, where he had that spidey sense, right? When he didn't know
Yes.
exactly what was going on across town, but he could sense there was something going on, something wrong. So what they do, they sense there's an issue, even though they don't know what it is, and they can't really express it correctly. So they come out with that first reactionary, your price is too high, I've got to ask my brother-in-law's second cousin's twin's neighbor, or I need to think it over, or whatever, okay? And so if we just try, so we can, take a sales 101 course and learn what the answer is to every objection. So what are we doing? We're basically giving the perfect response to what could be the absolutely wrong objection.
Right. Right. And so the problem is still there, and they're not going to get to a
Absolutely.
yes, because you're not really addressing the problem beneath the problem.
Well, what's the most dangerous objection in the world? The one that's never actually expressed.
Right. That's good. I love that. Awesome. Okay. So now fusion points, like what? Oh, wait,
Mm.
so wait, what does framing fit into all that? So
Well, so we've set the frame from, it's us against us against the customer or client,
got
to
it. Okay.
us working with
With
the
them,
customer and client in partnership together to
alignment.
advance the sale.
Perfect. Okay. So fusion points. Why are they the key? And what are they? And why are they the key to all sales successes?
Well, Christy, that's such a great question. Fusion Points is actually a branding that I built when I began to study why people make certain decisions, how they make the decision. And without getting too sciencey for the podcast today, basically, there's a neurology. There is a science, an actual neurological process that goes on inside our brain with each and every decision we humans make. There are no exceptions. And when we learn to work with that science instead of in opposition to that science, we can have some influence on how some key decisions get made. We can influence how a potential client chooses to listen to that first thing we're wanting to talk to them about, rather than saying no thanks or ignoring us. We can influence how they then decide to become a customer, and then later just a loyal ambassador for our brand. And we can also influence how our team stays with us, if we're a sales manager, or how we persist in our career. And that science is basically this: when we have an emotion in our brain, two things have to come together to make the decision: emotion and logic. No one makes a completely logical decision, and no one makes a completely emotional decision. As a matter of fact, the neurology says if those two parts of the brain can't communicate, that individual won't be able to make decisions. And so the emotions part is kind of where we kick in with fusion points. If it's a negative emotion that you're having in your brain, maybe it's fear, a sense of loss, something of that nature, that emotion in your head, the first thing your brain does is it sends an electric charge down into your chest, into your stomach, and it's called a somatic marker. And you feel something inside you physiologically that's different. Now, when it's a negative emotion, that physiological feeling makes you want to push away from it. So, in a process, whether it's sales or a personal life issue, if you're having that negative emotion and it's trying to combine with logic, what your decision is I want to get the heck away from this. I'm not going forward. But the flip side is also true. When it's a positive emotional experience in your brain, things like love, joy, a sense of belonging, those things, that somatic marker still happens, but it's a different somatic marker. And the feeling that it produces inside of our body is something we like. We want to pursue that more. We're comfortable going forward and taking that next step. And so when fusion points are basically that unique moment in time where logic and positive emotion merge and ignite. And what happens is they create an environment where people will persist. It creates loyalty. It creates a comfort in moving to that next step. And it's one of the reasons that everything that all of us that have been in sales forever, we've learned certain things work, but we didn't know why. My research actually finally pointed out to me how this all works together. And I think it's one of the most beautiful things about the objection proof process. Bob's been teaching the objection proof process for years, decades. And what you do in that process is you start off in such a way that you're building that relationship with your potential client. When you walk through the process, and I'm sure we'll get to that before it's over. But what happens is when you get to the other side, instead of having an adversarial relationship where they said this, I said that, they said this, I said that, you have a situation where you've helped them discover a solution to the issue. You worked with them. And when you come out the other end, you have built one great fusion point with that person. They're not only, then you've not only worked with that objection and gotten a solution, you've also built a stronger relationship with that new customer.
This is good. So can you give me kind of an example, like a real life example of how this would work?
Well, Bob, you want to walk through you want me to take this one, or you want to walk through the
Go ahead.
objection proof
Go
process?
ahead.
In the objection proof process, Bob's training on that, and what we wrote into the concept of the book was, first off, the better your discovery, the fewer your objections. So as you learn, you're going to get certain objections all the time. Handle that in the discovery process and in your sales conversation, because if you bring up a common objection along with the solution while you're discussing things, then it's education. But if you bring it up, or if you don't bring it up, and then your client or your potential client brings it up at the end, it's an objection.
Yes.
And when an objection happens, the first thing that happens is that combination in the salesperson of a negative emotion and logic. And I call them collision points, but a collision point occurs for that salesperson. They
Yeah.
start getting nervous, they get anxious, I'm not going to be able to make the sale happen. And so their prospect's going to feed off that anyway. So what we teach is the process of, number one, control your own emotions first. If you control your emotions and you relax, take a couple of deep breaths, your client will respond in kind almost every time. Then empathize. Let them know, okay, you consider that a valid thought process. It doesn't mean you're going to agree with it, but you're letting them know that they're not crazy for thinking that. It's a valid thought that they're having. And then you ask for their permission. Do you mind if we discuss it a little bit so I can get a better idea of your perspective? And then you start asking them questions. And the questions will be really trying to uncover that you're digging a little deeper, trying to uncover the real objection if they haven't really expressed that up front. And then as you do that, and you kind of state it back to them, so if I'm understanding you correctly, this is what the real issue is. And they say yes. And you've empathized with them. What happens at that point is they almost mentally give you permission, because of how you've worked with them, to change that frame, to slightly shift that frame and change their perspective. So that after you've empathized, you've asked your questions, isolated the objection, making sure that's the only one, that there's not something deeper. And then you can tell me, I can certainly understand why you might think that way, but maybe we can shift that a little bit. Let me throw out a couple of thoughts and see if we can come up with something together that would work. And what you've done at that point is you've valued them. You've treated them with absolute respect. They see that you're really caring and you're trying to do great things for them as well. And when you do, it gives you the ability at that point to offer the solutions, a little bit of social proof to show that, hey, my other clients think we can do this pretty well. And then you can move forward with it. And it creates that bond all in how you handled it.
Yeah, I like when you said that you ask permission to discuss it so I can see your perspective. Because
Right.
that right away like takes away the resistance and it's like, oh yeah, sure, let's discuss it. As opposed to thinking that you're gonna like keep trying to sell them and change their mind. And that wall just goes higher and higher the more you act in that way as opposed to align with them. I love that.
Well, again, you're operating out of a different frame. You're resetting the frame. A frame itself is simply the foundation from which everything else evolves. So when you set the proper frame or reset an already negatively set frame from the other person, what happens is you're 90% of the way to getting the results you want. Because again, it's as Jeff said earlier, it's the difference between bringing up the objection and educating as opposed to having to now answer an objection that they have. It's a totally different frame. So let's look, for example, you're about to have a sales conversation with a prospective customer or client. You're sitting at the table with this pro or the desk, wherever it happens to be, and she's a little bit defensive. She says, I just want you to know, I've already talked to 3 of your competitors. You all think I should be buying right away. That's just not my style. I just want to let you know, I don't want to be pressured into a sale. Now, she has just come at you from an adversarial frame. Okay. If we buy into that frame, what do? We become defensive. We say, well, my product is different, blah, blah, blah. Or, well, I, don't want to waste much or what, right? So what it is, it's a push, and nothing good is going to happen from this. Okay. So it's just the first thing we master our own emotions. We control our own emotions. Okay. Now, and we're going to empathize. And what we're going to do is let's now reset the frame, and we say something like, Doris, whether or not this is the right answer for you, or Doris, while I've been, very honored to be able to help many people in your area, through this, whatever it is, through this product, whether or not it's the right answer for you, I can't possibly even know without exploring much deeper and seeing if this is the right solution, if we'd be a good fit. So please know our discussion is for both of us to understand that. And if it works out, great. If not, that's okay as well. Boom. So what we've just done is we've totally reframed this from an adversarial situation to one of 2 allies or colleagues just looking to approach this in terms of what's going to be best for her. And that's what she's looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we just kind of go into the sales process sometimes the wrong way. And I like where you said start with your own emotions first, because if you're not in the right place, you bring that with you. And sometimes we don't realize that.
Well, very, very true. And that's where consciousness comes into play.
Yeah, of course.
And this happens before the actual situation arises. Okay. This happens long before. It's simply understanding that there are things that are going to come up in our business that we've got to know. Just like anything else, there's people who are going to say or do things that kind of push our emotional hot buttons and cause us to feel angry or sad or victimized or whatever. So if we know this in advance, we can prepare in our own mind for this to happen. And what's the first thing we practice? Controlling our own emotions, responding instead of reacting. Empathizing with them and trying to understand what's going on in their world that is causing perhaps this to happen. It's asking questions because we don't know what they're thinking. As human beings, we all come from our own set of beliefs, circumstances, experiences, and we tend to think everyone else sees the world basically the same way we do, but it's not true. We all see it first. So when we can understand this, we like to say, Jeff and I like to say that empathy doesn't, the dictionary definition of empathy is the identification with or vicarious experiencing of another person's feelings, which kind of sounds like we're saying step into the other person's shoes, which sounds easy, until you realize most of us have different size feet, which means literally we can't step into another person's shoes. Figuratively, we
That's so
can't step
true.
into their mind or step into their heart. Here's the good news, and this is what Jeff and I will constantly say. Empathy doesn't mean you necessarily understand how they feel, because you might not. It does mean that you communicate, maybe through what you say, how you say it, or just how you show up. You communicate that you understand they're feeling something,
Yes.
and that this something is distressful to them. It's causing them to have negative feelings, and you are there to help them work through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just the fact when we as humans feel heard, right? Seen and
Oh,
heard, right there allows us to kind of put our guard down and be able to relate person to
hmm
person. Yeah. I
yeah.
love that. So one of the questions that I want to ask you, because we're almost out of time, but I know in the entrepreneurial space, which is a huge part of my audience,
hmm
we're and self included, it's about getting those conversations in the first place and setting those appointments. And I know that there are kind of things that we can do to be a little bit more successful in that area. Do you guys want to touch on that?
Sure. Yeah, I teach a prospecting process, and we've incorporated that into the book, where we're getting people to understand, again, that science of how the decision's going to get made. Because one of the first decisions that we're going to have made by someone other than us in our business is the person that's out there in the marketplace, that prospect, even willing to have a meeting with us, have a visit with us. And
Yes.
so if we go in there cold, you're going to have basically one of three responses. Some people consider your product or service already. They know they need you. They know you have a good reputation. So when you approach them about that first visit, they're going to be open to it. Good thing. We wish they were all that way. But then you've got the other groups. You've got some people who feel like unexpected interruption for a sales call, it kind of makes them push back. It creates a collision point for them. So they push back and they either ignore you or just say no. And then you got another group that's the third group. They have no opinion about you. They don't know if they need anything or not. You're not part of their thought process. They're on their day. And so there's no particular emotional context. Well, what we teach in the way that we teach prospecting with a fusion points spin on it is, let's make some positive emotional connections with that potential client even before we show up and ask for the first meeting. And in the process, we take Thaddeus Tucker through doing a few things, doing a little research. I know how art subjects teaches about, you want to make sure you've done your research before you even approach that client. And so a little bit of research, sending them a couple of things. It could be as simple as an email that with an article they might find helpful. It could be something, maybe you saw a positive review about that business on Yelp or something. So you sent them a copy of that. And I know that we teach a process in the book too about sending out little notes or cards to the client, telling them that you look forward to meeting them soon. Please expect your call, things of that nature. But when you do that effectively and you send something that really is valuable in their eyes to them, whether it's you complimented their business because you saw that review or whatever, you do that 3 times before you actually even ask for the first visit. What happens is you've already started that connection of logic and positive emotion. So that when you ask for that first meeting, you're going to get a higher result. Nothing's going to work all the time, but the percentage of people that will say yes is higher. And so then when you're asked for that meeting, if you do something similar to what Bob did earlier when he was talking about the objection-proof process, when you make that initial contact, you let them know up front, I'm not 100% sure that this is going to be a great fit for your company, a great fit for our company. This is so we can find that out. But I do know that you and I are the two most perfect people to make that decision. And so
Mm.
we'll figure that out at the time. But if you've made those positive connections, the chances of them being willing to visit with you go up drastically.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, gosh, I wish we had another like 20 minutes to talk about all this. This is so good. I know you guys are in the middle of a big launch, right? And I just want to be able to support you however I can. And I want to be able to, more importantly, well, equally serve our audience. And I know you have something that you really want to share with our audience. So you want to talk about what that is?
It's called SalesWise Live, and I'm going to let my friend introduce it to you.
Yeah. Well, first, feel welcome to visit Streetwise to saleswise.com, and you can listen or read the first 2 chapters of the book. And then if you decide you would like to purchase it, you can always click through. And yes, we are holding, along with our friend Kim Angeli, an amazing business strategist, Jeff and I are holding a SalesWise Live 2024 2-day event in West Palm Beach, Florida at the beautiful Ben Hotel, which people are just totally fired up about. I had actually never heard of it, and I live 25 minutes away, but everybody who said, "No, the Ben," so and they've given amazing room rates, so people I think are even more excited about that. But yeah, it's gonna be
No.
2 days. Yeah, it's gonna be 2 days of just real intensive but fun sales teaching, where a person's going to be able to take their business from where it is right now, which is probably already successful, to that next level of success, where they're going to have a lot more fun in their business. They're going to, have a lot less stress, and they're going to make a lot more money. So we are very, very excited. And
when is it? When is the big
it
day?
is going to be June. Oh, goodness gracious. Jeff, is it the 2nd and 3rd or 3rd and 4th?
Well, the event itself is June 3rd and 4th, but we're having a special gathering the night before on the 2nd for everybody to come.
All
to.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, since I'm in Florida, I'm excited.
Yahoo!
All right. I know I plan to head back to Chicago in June, but I will make sure that that I'm here for that, because that sounds like that's going to be a lot of fun.
It really is. And, Christie, it's just, this is probably the 5th interview we've done since you've had different podcasts, and you've been on my podcast when I had mine. And Jeff, I know you don't know her quite as well as I do. I've been friends with Christie as long as I've been friends with you, I think. And I'm glad you guys have gotten to know each other. But Christie is she is a leader who I have seen just build some businesses and build people. She is a leader of others. She's an equipper of others. And I have so much admiration and respect for her. I call her one of my real life action heroes. So I know that your listeners and those in your tribe, I know they love you, and I know they know, really how wonderful you are. But I just really hope everyone knows you've been one of the lights in my life.
Well, you are my very first mentor when I got started in my business with DPWN years ago. And you have just been not only pouring into me constantly, but pouring into all of our members back when we were, city partner with you, and you came in and taught them and all of our group and the BNI groups, which is awesome. And then having a chance to meet like-minded people, part of Bob's tribe. And that's where I was able to meet Jeff and so many other amazing people. And so I really appreciate both of you guys. I know you are busy. You're on this amazing tour to get as many people to just learn from you, be inspired by you through another amazing parable. So I really appreciate both of you guys being on the show today. And I know my audience is going to love this and being able to get the chapters.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. It's an honor.
So if you all that are listening want to make sure you connect with Bob and Jeff, all of the links are going to be in the show notes below. So feel free to just dive in. Get ready to read an amazing book, and we'll make sure we have the link to this event as well, because I don't have it, but I'll make sure I get that from you, and then it'll be in the show notes, and then you guys could all meet all of us at that event. That's going to be so much fun.
Perfect.
So, all right. Well, thanks everybody, and we will see you on the next episode of the Mastery Unleashed podcast. Be sure you go to whatever platform you listen and show us some love. And YouTube has a new process where we need followers. So just go to YouTube, hit the little follow button, and now that'll help us increase our visibility to be able to get our show out in front of more people. So thanks everybody. And most importantly, thank you too.
Thanks for listening to the Mastery Unleashed podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams by turning their mess into their greatest message and following their purpose to help the people who need their newfound wisdom and resources. To learn more, visit masteryunleashedpodcast.com And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review to this show.